Hi, I'm Anna. I'll never forget the night my mom stood in the middle of the living room, her voice sharp as glass. Starting next month, you'll pay rent if you want to stay here, she shouted. My plate of dinner froze in my hands. The mashed potatoes suddenly looked like a lump of wet cement, and the steam rising from the chicken felt like a cold fog. The sound of the television, a game show host laughing, faded into a dull buzz in my ears. All I could hear was the echo of her words, bouncing off the familiar walls of our home. Rent? In my childhood home? My father didn't look up from his own plate, his fork methodically scraping against the ceramic. My brother, Jason, lounged on the couch, a smug little smile playing on his lips as he scrolled through his phone. It was as if a bomb had been dropped, but I was the only one who felt the shrapnel. I looked from my mother's rigid posture to my father's deliberate ignorance, to my brother's casual cruelty. In that single, shattering moment, I understood that the word home had just been redefined. It was no longer a place of comfort or refuge. It was a transaction, and I was the one who was about to be charged. Just 6 months earlier, I had walked across a stage in a stuffy cap and gown, my diploma clutched in my hand. I was drowning in student loan debt, a figure so large it felt unreal. But I had a degree in logistics, a field that was supposed to be practical. I felt the weight of expectation on my shoulders, the same one I'd carried through 4 years of late-night study sessions and part-time jobs. Living at home was supposed to be the safety net, a soft place to land while I got on my feet. Save your money, get a good start, my dad had said. My mom had nodded, adding, get yourself established first. Their words had felt like a promise, a reassurance that I still had a sanctuary. That promise evaporated quickly. I landed an entry-level job at a local distribution center. The title was logistics coordinator, but the reality was long hours and low pay. My shifts were erratic. Sometimes I was in the office at 6 a.m. Other nights, I wouldn't get home until after 10. I was trying so hard. I packed my lunch every day. I turned down invitations from friends to go out. The excuse, I'm trying to save money, always on my lips. Every paycheck felt like a drop of water in an empty bucket. A huge portion went straight to my student loan payments. The rest was carefully allocated to gas, car insurance, and a tiny savings account. I did my part at home. I did my own laundry and cleaned my own bathroom. On my days off, I'd mow the lawn or help with chores. I bought groceries on my way home from work, never asking for the money back. I thought I was contributing, being a responsible adult. But the atmosphere had shifted. My presence now felt like an intrusion. My mom would make little comments under her breath. If I came home late, she'd sigh dramatically. If I slept in on a Saturday, she'd make a point of running the vacuum cleaner right outside my door. She was treating me less like a daughter and more like a tenant who was behind on payments. The home I had grown up in was starting to feel like foreign territory. I was a guest who had overstayed her welcome. The final demand for rent wasn't a sudden storm. It was the lightning strike after months of dark clouds gathering overhead. The injustice of it all was a bitter pill to swallow, and its name was Jason. My brother was 2 years older than me, but in terms of responsibility, he was a decade younger. Jason had drifted through community college before dropping out, declaring that the traditional path wasn't for him. For the past 4 months, he'd been completely unemployed. His daily routine was a testament to his lack of ambition. He'd wake up around noon, eat whatever my mother had cooked, and spend the rest of the day on the living room couch playing video games. Empty bags of chips and soda cans were his decorations. He never cleaned up after himself. He was a ghost who paid no bills. He lived entirely off our parents' generosity, a generosity that seemed to have no limits where he was concerned. He drove our dad's second car and never once put $1 into the gas tank. Dad would just hand him a $20 bill without a second thought. No one ever asked him to contribute. His presence on the couch was accepted as a simple fact of life. My achievements were met with polite acknowledgement, while Jason's smallest efforts were celebrated. I remembered one evening a few weeks before the rent demand. I came home from a grueling shift, proud that I had fixed a major shipping error at work. My boss said I handled that logistics crisis really well today, I said, hoping for a bit of praise. My mom was at the stove. Oh, that's nice, dear, she said, not turning around. Jason walked in then, holding up a piece of paper. I filled out a job application online, he announced, as if he'd just cured a disease. My mother immediately turned off the stove and rushed over to him. Oh, Jason! That's wonderful. I'm so proud of you for putting yourself out there. I just stood there, invisible. My tangible accomplishment was worth less than my brother spending 5 minutes on the internet. He didn't even get the job. But for the rest of the night, he was the hero of the house. That was the dynamic. Jason was the project who needed endless support. I was the utility, expected to function perfectly and silently. His failures were coddled. My successes were overlooked. So when my mom demanded rent from me while Jason sat on the couch, smirking and contributing nothing, it wasn't a surprise. It was simply the culmination of a lifetime of being the second-place child. The silence in the room after my mother's ultimatum was thick. I finally found my voice, my words trembling. Rent? Why are you asking me for rent? Jason doesn't pay rent? My mother's face hardened. This isn't about Jason, she snapped. This is about you. You have a full-time job. It's time you started paying your own way. I am paying my own way, I protested. I pay for my car, my insurance, my phone. I have thousands of dollars in student loans. I'm trying to get ahead, not fall further behind. I looked at my dad, pleading with my eyes for him to be reasonable. He finally cleared his throat and set his fork down, but he didn't look at me. Stop being so dramatic, Anna, he said, his tone flat. Your mother's right. You should contribute to the household. The word dramatic felt like a slap. I wasn't being dramatic. I was being logical. But in our family, my legitimate frustrations were always labeled as overreactions. It was their way of avoiding my actual argument. Jason, seeing his opening, decided to pile on. He finally looked up from his phone, a cruel grin on his face. Maybe she finally realized you're just a burden, he laughed. Miss Perfect with her straight A's, guess what? It doesn't mean you get to live for free. Tears burned my eyes, hot and sharp. I refused to let them fall. I would not give them the satisfaction. I bit the inside of my cheek, the small pain a welcome distraction. I felt like I was surrounded by distorted reflections of the people I was supposed to trust most. My mother wasn't just asking for a financial contribution. She was levying a tax on my success. My father wasn't being a peacemaker. He was being a coward. And my brother was enjoying it. He reveled in my humiliation because it validated his own lazy existence. This isn't fair, I whispered. My mom crossed her arms. Life isn't fair, Anna. I looked at the three of them. I was outnumbered. Any further argument was pointless. I swallowed the tears along with my pride. I stood up from the table, my dinner untouched. Fine, I said, my voice cold and steady. I understand. I walked out of the room. I didn't run. I didn't slam the door. I just walked away, carrying the weight of their betrayal on my shoulders. That night, sleep was impossible. I lay in my childhood bed, staring at the ceiling where a few faded glow-in-the-dark stars still clung on. The room felt like a museum of a person I used to be. The academic trophies on my shelf looked cheap and meaningless. Every object was a reminder of the deal I thought I had with the world. You work hard. You follow the rules, and you will be valued. I had held up my end of the bargain. I remembered the Friday nights in high school I spent studying for exams while Jason was out with his friends. My perfect report card would get a simple, "Good job, honey," while his breaking curfew would be forgotten by morning. I remembered working as a waitress all through college to pay for my books. Jason would ask me to lend him money, and my parents would encourage it. Help your brother out, Anna. He rarely paid me back. I had done everything right. I was the responsible one, the one they never had to worry about. And my reward? To be called a burden. To have my hard-earned money demanded from me to subsidize my brother's lifestyle. The unfairness of it was a physical ache. Lying there in the dark, the truth became painfully clear. Their love wasn't unconditional. Jason's value was in his neediness. He made them feel like providers. My value was supposed to be in my independence, but now that I was on the cusp of it, my independence was a threat. My success made Jason's failures look even starker. It was easier to pull me down than it was to lift him up. A cold, hard anger began to replace the humiliation. It started as a small ember and slowly grew, burning away the hurt. I was done seeking their approval. Done playing the part of the dutiful daughter. They thought I was trapped because I lived under their roof. They had pushed me too far. They had mistaken my quiet perseverance for weakness. I wasn't going to cry or argue. I was going to get out. And I was going to do it on my own terms, in a way they would never see coming. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. My revenge wouldn't be loud or confrontational. I would give them silence and compliance. I would work, harder than ever before in the shadows. At breakfast, I was quiet and polite. "Good morning," I said, pouring coffee. "So have you thought about what we discussed?" My mom asked, her tone challenging. "Yes," I said calmly. "You're right. I should contribute. Let me know what you think is fair." Her surprise was visible. She had been ready for a fight, and my easy capitulation disarmed her. The number she came up with was exorbitant, designed to keep me struggling. "Okay," I said, looking at the figure. "I'll have it for you on the 1st of the month." From that day on, my life became a study in brutal efficiency. I became a ghost in my own home. I left for work early and came home late. My double shifts became regular. At the office, they thought I was ambitious. They didn't know I was fueled by spite. Every expense was cut. My morning coffee became a thermos I filled at home. I stopped buying anything that wasn't a necessity. My world shrank to my car, my cubicle, and my bedroom. While I worked, I also planned. Late at night, I polished my resume and applied for better jobs. I used my lunch breaks to do phone interviews in my car. At home, Jason continued to gloat. "Working late again, Anna. Trying to make that rent money?" He'd say with a laugh. My parents seemed content. They thought they had won. They mistook my silence for submission. They had no idea that every dollar I handed them was a reminder, a catalyst. I opened a new secret bank account and had a portion of my direct deposit funneled into it. It was my get-out fund. Watching that number grow was the only thing that brought me joy. They saw a tired, beaten-down daughter. They didn't see the woman who was meticulously plotting her own liberation. The month passed in a blur. On the 1st, I transferred the rent money to my mother. She gave me a tight, satisfied smile. "See? That wasn't so hard," she said. I just nodded. During that month, one of my job applications paid off. A larger logistics firm downtown offered me a position as a logistics analyst. The salary was nearly double what I was making, and it came with a significant signing bonus. The bonus was my ticket out. I accepted the job and spent the next few weeks arranging my new life. I found a small loft apartment downtown and used the signing bonus to pay the security deposit and first and last month's rent. I signed the lease, my hand steady. I started packing in secret, moving boxes to my car in the dead of night. The rest I could live without. The night before I left, my mother came into my room without knocking. She slammed a white envelope onto my dresser. On the front, in her sharp handwriting, it said, "Rent due. Just a reminder for tomorrow," she said. "If you can't pay this, don't bother unpacking. Maybe living out of your car for a while will teach you some responsibility." Her cruelty was so casual. I looked at her and felt nothing but a profound, empty pity. I gave her a small, calm smile. "Don't worry, Mom," I said. "I won't unpack." I stood up, walked to my closet, and pulled out the single large suitcase I had packed. I zipped it shut, the sound loud and final. I picked up my purse and my car keys from the dresser. I walked past her towards the door. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "I'm leaving," I said simply. I walked down the stairs and headed for the front door. "Where are you going at this hour?" my dad asked from the living room. I didn't answer. I opened the door, stepped out into the cool night air, and pulled it shut behind me. I didn't slam it. I let it click softly into place. As I walked to my car, I didn't look back. They thought they had me backed into a corner, but I had just walked right out of the cage. The first 2 weeks of my new life were a revelation. My apartment wasn't large, but it was all mine. The silence was the most beautiful part. There were no passive-aggressive sighs, no feeling of being constantly judged, just peace. My new job was challenging and exciting, and my confidence slowly started to rebuild itself. My parents had tried to call me dozens of times. I ignored them all. I needed space to solidify my new reality before I let their chaos back in. The reveal happened by chance. 2 weeks in, on a Friday afternoon, I was pulling into the parking lot of a grocery store near my apartment. As I did, I saw a familiar SUV. It was my dad's car, with Jason behind the wheel and my mom in the passenger seat. I ducked down, my heart hammering. I watched as Jason got out, holding a stack of resumes. My mom pointed to the large office building across the street. My office building. He was here to drop off a resume. An hour later, I was walking back to my apartment with my groceries. I saw them again, standing on the sidewalk right outside my building, looking lost. I realized a friend of my mother's lived on a lower floor. There was no way to avoid them. I took a deep breath, clutched my grocery bag, and walked towards the entrance. "Anna?" My mother's voice was a mixture of shock and disbelief. I turned to face them. Their jaws were practically on the pavement. They looked at me, then at my professional clothes, then at the entrance to the sleek modern apartment building behind me. What are you doing here?" My dad, who had joined them, stammered. "I live here," I said, my voice calm. Jason just stared, his mouth agape. "You live here?" My mother repeated, her eyes wide. "How can you afford this?" "My new job pays well," I said. "And it came with a signing bonus." I gave them a small, polite smile. "I have to go. My ice cream is melting." I turned, used my key fob to open the heavy glass door, and walked into the lobby without looking back. I could feel their stunned stares on my back. The quiet click of the door closing behind me was the sweetest sound I had ever heard. That evening, my phone rang. It was Jason. His voice was nothing like the arrogant tone I was used to. "Hey, Anna," he started. "So, Mom and Dad are freaking out." "I can imagine," I said. He hesitated. "Listen, things are getting rough here. Mom's been on my case nonstop since you left. She's saying I need to start paying rent or get out." The irony was thick. "So, I was thinking," he continued, "your new place looks big. Maybe I could crash on your couch for a little while? Just until I get on my feet." I remembered every snide comment, every laugh at my expense. "No, Jason," I said, my voice cold. "You can't stay with me. You need to figure out your own problems." "But I'm your brother," he said, panicked. "And you should have remembered that a month ago," I replied. "Sorry, Jason, can't help." I hung up. A few days later, my mother called. Her tone was weary and manipulative. "Anna, honey," she began, "I think we all just misunderstood each other. When I asked you for rent, I didn't mean it that way. I was just trying to teach you about the real world. I never would have actually kicked you out. The gaslighting was so blatant it was insulting." She wasn't sorry. She had just lost her leverage. "We miss you, sweetie," she said. "Why don't you come over for dinner this Sunday? We can talk this all out." I pictured sitting at that dinner table again, pretending nothing had happened. The peace I had found was too new, too fragile to risk. "I can't," I said. "I'm busy." "Oh," she said, her voice small. "I have to go." "Mom," I said finally. "I love you, Anna," she whispered. A last, desperate attempt. "Goodbye, Mom," I said, and ended the call. I sat in my quiet apartment. I hadn't screamed or exacted some grand revenge. I had simply removed myself from the equation. My success, my independence, my peace, that was my revenge. And it was far more profound than any angry words could ever be. That's my story. That's how my parents pushed me out of their home with cruelty, thinking they were teaching me a lesson. The real lesson they taught me was one they never intended. They taught me that my own strength was more than enough. They unknowingly pushed me into an independence I might have taken years to find on my own. I learned that sometimes the people who are supposed to be your biggest supporters can become your biggest obstacles. And I learned that walking away isn't an act of weakness. It's an act of profound self-preservation. If you've ever been treated unfairly by your family, if you've ever been made to feel small by the very people who should have been lifting you up, you'll understand my story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your own experiences in the comments below. I'd love to hear them because I know I'm not alone.